So, biomechanical efficiency. So now we're talking about speed loss, energy waste, and those are detection that you can find in some devices. I use my Garmin and I'm able to detect. If I have an early catch, I'll be able to see. If I have an early exit or high roll or low TPS, those all you can see was just the Garmin watch. You'll be able to determine those. If you want to measure them, you can measure them. Okay? So, what important outcomes that you can see about these graphs is the loss of speed and the gain of speed that you can measure with these devices. Garmin will give you this. Garmin will give you this opportunity to look and dive down into the story. Okay? So I'm just gonna go and just, because it's not super important, this is the stroke. So it's the same thing here, so you're looking at average distance of the stroke where it goes, you get a peak, and then you go down here, and then you start efficient as possible all the way to the end. So, we're very fortunate. I think 2-3 months ago, I said they released all those data information about Paris 2024 and Tokyo 2020, and now we have lots of information. You can go online and gather those information and check on how it's facing, and check on how is the speed, and check on how the distance is all available now for you. So, if you look at the Game 1000, done in Topaz, for example, and then these are the graphs that we get. With these new devices right now, this morning when we were looking at Chava, he was showing me the 0 to 250, and 250 to 500 meters, and then 250 to 500, and then 500 to 750, and 1,000. And we see this every 5 meters. Every 5 meters you get the numbers. Every 5 meters, you just click here, and you see how fast it is. The number will appear. You click here on the green line, and you see how much this is the software, how much is the software. Every 5 meters. It's unbelievable, these devices nowadays. So this is his table. You look at the time, and this is all measured by 100 meters. Okay? So you get the intervals, you get the average speed. This is meter per second, it's not kilometers per hour. And then you get the average stroke rate. It goes up to 129 at the start, basic, 111 all the way to the finish. And then you get this is the one I love. This is the best metrics you want to get. This is the result. It's 2.46, I guess the highest was 2.68, 2.66. He's very steady with his TPS times. Okay. So, there is a big relationship between stroke rate and what? What affected the distance of stroke? Stroke rate and the speed. Okay? So you go higher stroke rate, lower distance of stroke. You go lower stroke rate to get higher distance of stroke. Where you want to be, you also want to look for the optimal zone. Okay? And especially when you do your analysis, make sure you have an objective. Because you want to look for where is the high, where is the low, and how can you trace the one in just in between. So this is the optimal zone. You got the yellow zone, and you get the over cadence. That's the over stroke rate. You see those guys, they go fast, but then they get no speed. They come back, they finish one of the last. Okay? So you really want to pay attention. Because you can go high stroke rate. Usually he's going fast, but he's not. He's actually losing speed. He's slowly losing speed with the high stroke rate. Okay? So you gotta be careful. You need to find that green zone, the medium zone, the optimal range where you got the perfect speed that is individualized. Okay? Every person has his own stroke rate, his own. This is a stroke that is very convenient for the speed. Okay? I'm just gonna go quick here. Stop. Speed drop. I just want to quickly talk about the speed drop. When we go for a race, it's very important to measure how much you're dropping from the top highest speed. Okay? The new Garmin devices will actually tell you how much it is you're dropping. You can calculate the percentage. Okay? Generally, if you go below 12% and 11% of your top speed, you're losing. That's not good. You don't want to go more or less than that. So what is the perspective? Is you go as high as possible, you reach your top speed at the start, but then you don't want to drop too much. Okay? And then the drop should not be less than 12%. Okay? So remember, you reach your top speed and try to maintain your speed as fast as possible. I have a big problem with this. Acceleration. So one of the new devices will measure the acceleration too. What is the acceleration? It's actually the acceleration between one stroke to another stroke. Remember, when we go fast, so let's say you go lap to lap to go really, really fast, there is an acceleration that we can't see. The coach's eye cannot see. It's the impulsion. Every stroke has an impulsion. Dr. Alice was talking about this today in the last presentation. He's talking about the impulsion, okay? The ballistic power of the stroke, how you hit the water, you go fast, and you pull. That, you can see it. Very experienced coaches can see it. But with the new technology, we can actually detect the impulsion and how it is effective. And we can measure it now. Okay? So it's the both acceleration during the race. Because during the race, we can't go perfect. We go high, low, high, low, high, low, and it's hard to see. If you go and you look at someone who's racing, you can't see how fast. All you see is maybe high stroke rate, lower stroke rate. But you can't see the you're not going to be able to detect the acceleration. With the new technology now, you will tell us how fast is the boat and how are the acceleration. And then you can measure, because that will be the index of fatigue. If you see the boat that the acceleration is too low, the index of the acceleration is super low, that means they're getting super tired during the race. Okay? But if you see somebody who's going fast and at the end, boom, speed and finish higher then the acceleration is higher. That is now you can measure. It's a lot of things you can measure now. Power, I'm just going to skip this because that gets a little bit complicated with some new devices that I sometimes don't agree with. You get a lot of numbers that is not super accurate, especially with the power. Okay? And by the way, I was talking to one of the companies and I said, how come you measure the power of this little device that you put on the boat and you put no sensors? I just couldn't believe it. So they were telling me, this is two German engineers, they come up with this device and they want to market this device. So they said, and I said, tell me how you can measure it. They said, we measure the power by the acceleration of the boat. And what Dr. Alex was talking about this morning, the ballistic assault, how you hit the water, and how by the boat reaction they were able to detect not how fast, but how is the power applied to the stroke. I don't know how, but that's what they said. They said there's a correlation between acceleration and speed. They were able to come up with a formula to measure the power. And they did a lot of testings on many teams, and it proved to be effective. So the acceleration is so important. This is why I'm saying acceleration during the race, that's very important too. That's why the athletes, they go fast, and then they pace, and then They go higher, they go low, that is acceleration. Alright, next. Stroke rate versus speed. We can talk about this for hours. Some people will say, I go fast, I higher my stroke rate, I go fast, that's automatic. Some coaches will say, no, you higher the stroke rate, you actually can go slow. And we can debate about this for a long time, okay? But what is more important is when you know your DPS, your perfect stroke rate, your perfect speed, that's going to give you the perfect DPS. Once you know that, every single athlete that you have at the club will be super successful. Because now you're scientifically trying to determine what is the optimal stroke rate, okay? And what is the optimal speed that will give you the best and optimal distance per stroke. Once you have that, once you know that scientifically, you'll be able to get the best athletes that will even way faster than you can. Okay? So it's not just like, okay, try your best, go as fast as you can. That is not very effective. They need to know what is their optimal range. When exactly they hit that plateau or they hit the zone of that stroke rate, they will start getting actually slow. You think they will go faster, they will start getting slow. Okay? I'm just going to say that this is too much complex sounds. Here we go. These are the menu that I was talking about. So, don't worry about pictures because you will get this presentation, okay? Everybody. So if you have a group chat, we will send this to all of you, okay? You're welcome to take pictures, but we'll get you this. So here's the recipe. So if you go, and most of these next follow-up presentation, it's based on Paris 2024, okay? And based on the ICF data that has been published, okay? Because I know you're going to go on my website and you're going to see so many numbers and you get lost, okay? So what I did is I tried my best, and I'm still working on these numbers to make sure they're super accurate, okay? So I'm still working on these presentations. But I tried to take a snap of every event, the winners, the gold medals, and give you a clear picture. What is the recipe? What is the recipe for gold medal? This is the recipe. You're a race guy, you all know this, you know. But what is the other recipe? I wish I knew this when I was here. I wish I know that with those gold medals, I know what is the other speed, okay? But this is all based on Paris 2024. They could be higher, they could be lower, okay? But for this particular race, this is the recipe for gold medal. For that particular time, for that particular race, for that particular venue, okay? Speed was 17. Average stroke rate was between 90 and 100, okay? And then you get the distance to stroke, between 2.8 and 3.2. Okay, go to the next one here. C1000 men. What is the recipe for success? Time 3:52, average speed 14-15 kilometers an hour, stroke rate, and then you get the distance to stroke. Goes up to 4. C2 200 meters, same thing too. Katie Vincent, it goes up to 95. It's impressive how fast she goes with the stroke rate, and she's pretty fast. 95, 92, 86 at the end, her stroke rate goes. And then you get the average speed. So, it's not so complicated. When you have a watch, you have a Garmin watch, for example, or any watch, this is the speed range that you need to base on when you do your training program. They need to know that they should stick with 14.15 when they do their racing. That's where they need to stick with. When you do your training program, it would be nice to add stroke rate, it would be nice to add speed. Because they have those watches and they will stick with those instructions. C1 over 200. So these are the graphs. C1 500 meters. This is what you get. 17.5 kilometers an hour. 72 stroke rate. the distance per stroke up to 4.8. So that's the exact same thing what we're talking about, what Chad was talking about this morning. You can go as fast as possible when you're trying to maintain. When you look, he was talking about the Brazilian, how he was able to keep exact same thing. And I think that was it here. Lisa Currington, same thing too. 17 speed, and then stroke rate was 95 to up to 110. Her distance per stroke was between 2.6 and 3. Now, if you look at her phase, the start, her DPS was almost 2.5 because you get very high stroke rate. Remember, at the start, your DPS is always low because you go fast stroke rate, you're not very effective at the start, okay? So, when you look at 2.5, compare what I said you have to be 3 plus, be careful because it's only 50 meters to start. And then you get always low DPS and then increase because now you finish your start, and then you have a steady pace to try to keep the pace as fast as possible, okay? But then at the end, she was 2.7. She gets super tired, she focuses on technique, but she's very consistent all the way. So that will be the same thing here for 200 meters. She got up to 20 kilometers top speed, 135, 145, that was her stroke rate. How amazing she is. She can do 500 meters, she can do 200 meters, totally different distance. She can play with her stroke rate, she can go high and low, and she's super effective. K4. What is the recipe for K4 for success? Here you go. Top speed is 23. If you have K4 and you send your K4 for training, make sure they're higher than 20 kilometers an hour if you're doing 500 meters. That is the top speed for K4. If you're going 18, 17, 16, you know, at least you know you're not there. At least you know. Or they're going slow. Then you as a coach, you need to know your numbers. And these are all your numbers. You know this, then it's easy to plan, to make your training programs. It's based on what you know. These are the recipe for success. These are the gold methods for 2024. K2 500 meter. This is men's. I'm just going to skip this one here. This is the K2 500 meter. Both of them is the gold medal again. That is the recipe for success. And you look at the start, and you look at the middle of the race, and all those numbers are there. So she goes higher than 18.5, 19, goes fast in the middle, and finishes about 19.5 kilometers an hour. So that's the K4. Woman K4. It's a little bit less speed than the K4, men's K4. So the 20.5 was the top speed. The stroke rate was 100 and 112. DPS was 3.2, 3.6 for the whole group. And then if you want to look at the graph, you know, the K4 usually it's easier for the K4 at the end to go faster than the K1. Remember that. K2, T-boats usually, the crew, they're more able to go faster than single boats. Because the technique is different, the speed is much higher, and you're especially top speed. Okay? So usually what you see, what you really want to see as a coach for K4, for crew boats, is at the end you want to see your crews super fast at the end. go way faster. Almost matching the start. C2 men's, these are your numbers. And it's all based on the 3 pillars I showed you. What is your speed? What is your stroke rate? And what is your distance stroke? That's all you want to know. If you master those numbers, you're one of the best coaches already. If you know your numbers. Here we go. C2 500 meters, the same thing. 16.5, 72 to 85 stroke rate per minute. DPS, gold medal time. This is Joseph Dostal, and I pulled his face and I put it right here. See, when Chavo was talking about technique, he was talking about, look at his face, how he's super aggressive. Look at Joseph Dostal. Scary, right? Super scary. So that will show you how aggressive they go when they race. You know, if you see somebody smiling, going fast, and not breathing, you know the difference between elite athletes and, you know, that this is how you perform. By being super aggressive. Super aggressive, beyond your limitation. 19.5 of the speeds, his stroke rate was 100 to 112. 3.6 actually, I was impressed by these sort of distances. Joseph Dessel, if you don't know him, he's super tall. And if you see this is very exceptional DPS. Usually DPS is, if you look at what's his name, Hungarian talent, it's 2.8, 2.9. I show you the numbers. Way lower efficiency, and he's much higher speed. It's unbelievable. So don't get lost into the numbers, because you can see lower DPS but faster speed. Chavo was talking about that. The huge difference between Joseph Dostal and Balint, the Hungarian, someone who's super tall, very big, and someone who's way shorter than him, very slim. Almost 50 kilograms difference. Who goes faster? In Paris, he was great. Oh, that was Milan 2024. He won the gold medal. But again, when he raced with the Hungarian Balint, he lost the gold medal. So the amazing thing to have technology nowadays is we're now able to measure the acceleration, the start, the beginning. And we're able to decorticate, to go deep into the start and analyze the start and see how fast they go and how fast we can reach the peak of the speed and measure all this. Okay? And usually these races are won and lost. We say this as coaches at the start. If you lose your start, you almost lose your race. It's not always true, but that's where most races, especially 200 meters. 200 meters is guaranteed. You lose your start, you lose the whole race. Well, in the end, it's all about reading your data. You need to know how to read them. You need to know how to analyze them. And that's why I'm trying to summarize all those numbers to try not to make it super complicated and try to pick the what right number that you need to know, then try to use it in the future. Okay? What do you need to know? What is your speed? And when you know the speed, what is the standard for the speed? Then I give you those standards. And then you know your stroke rate. Oh, I know my stroke rate. Oh, what is my green zone? What is my yellow zone? What is the danger zone? And I should not be in that danger zone. If I increase my stroke rate, I go super high, then I'm going to start losing my speed. Then you should not do that. And maybe you should find what is your exact green zone. Okay? And then once you have the stroke rate, once you have the speed, then you automatically have the GPS. Okay? Another good thing to know to see if you can measure the acceleration, and automatically you can measure the index of fatigue. Okay, because then you know how fast they accelerate during the race. There's an acceleration, deceleration, acceleration, deceleration. They get tired. You have a 100% big start, and during the race, and especially when it's long distance, 1,000 meters, it's amazing to see the index of the fatigue, especially at the end. It's funny because analyzing all this information, I remember when I was young, all I care about is looking at my heart rate, because that's the only information I have. I buy those polar watches. You know, I remember my first GPS I bought was from France, Decathlon. So I go there, that was my first GPS, but that was almost at the end of my career when I got my first GPS. So I couldn't use it. But what I was using, in all coaches, we always was using the heart rate. So having all these numbers should not shift you away from knowing your heart rate zones, and be careful. You want to really know that too. Okay? Well, the conclusion at the end, and I hope you'll be able to, when you study the numbers, it will take you years to know your numbers. And I hope you'll be able now to come up with the prescriptions. I call it prescriptions because when you master those numbers, then you can modify your training plan. And Dr. Alex was talking about this morning, and he was talking about prioritization and all this. Once you know those information, then you can say, well, maybe I should do three times maybe this workout per week, and try to do more recovery. Maybe I should train in this zone, maybe I should train in zone 4, like that zone, because my pacing is not really good, okay? If you know all this, and you do all the combinations, all your numbers together, and you know your pace, then maybe you come up with your own prescription for each athlete, which is very difficult to come up with, okay? But that's the goal. The goal is to use technology in favor of your planning, to be able to perform much better as a coach and be more efficient when you plan your workouts, and especially when you plan your cycles for the yearly training plan. Okay, we're almost at the end. And this is, I really want to emphasize on this. You do not want to forget to go back to basics. Okay? I love technology. I'm one of the most passionate the technology in my club. Every new device I go and buy. Okay? But I told my athletes, some practices, no watches today. No watches. Oh, I want to measure my speed. No. I want you to feel your speed. Don't use it today. No watches, nothing. I want you to feel the boat, okay? We should not, as coaches, become a machine where you only function when you know these numbers, we analyze the numbers. No. We produce Olympic champions without these numbers. And remember, we never had GPS, we never had those devices before. Now we do, we need to use them. Yes, 100% you need to upgrade your skills as coaches, but always go back to basics, okay? Dr. Alex was talking about the coach's eye, when you look at the technique, and you know when you must have your common sense and what is the athletes need to do and change and try to modify. You should be able to read that. You're not a good coach if you can't use your eye to detect, to determine the problems and try to fix them. Okay? But I understand if you're a young coach and you don't have experience, if I was you, I will use technology to help me to be a better coach. Definitely. They're available for me. That will help me 100%. Because it's going to take you years to be able to detect. You just look and you know what's the problem right there. Not everybody can in this room. And I understand. It will take you a long time. Some of you do not coach every day. So maybe you coach once, some of you are a volunteer coach. So you don't have the opportunity to become a really good coach. Okay? But with technology today, you can be. But always come back to basics. that's it, probably. Let's see what's... Yeah, I just want to finish my presentation with, I don't know what the future is going to look like. I was talking on the table today, and I was talking to a few companies. They're every single day, every single month. And what they were telling me, they said, Zach, we're actually working on a machine that has a little speaker. During the pattern, during the training session, the machine will tell you to lower your stroke or higher your stroke rate, your stroke rate, based on the distance you stroke. And the machine will do that, which is unbelievable, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't know how the future is. I have no control to that. We don't have no control about what's going on with the AI and how things is going to evolve in the future. But I can tell you, I speak with many companies right now, the companies that I buy the devices, and they tell me the next 6-7 months we have a new feature, They always upgrading. And I don't know how much useful the coaches will be in the future. And I hope it will always be useful. But I think that's it. Thank you for your attention. That was great. If you have any question, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just hand it over to our next speaker.
Yeah, when you compare about the DPS, it's so that the DPS of the 500 meter and the 200 meter was different. Difference was there.
What's the difference between?
Yeah, 500 meter came out million and the 200 meter came out million.
Yeah.
Right?
The difference with the DPS?
Yes.
To be honest with you, I would never measure DPS for 200 meters. I don't care about it.
Okay, so
China said that this morning. 200 meters, just go, you don't even look at the technique, you just go as fast as possible.
okay, fine. No
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So let's forget about 200 meter.
Sure.
It's about 500 meter, and someone like you have a higher stroke rate than me,
Yeah.
and I'm racing faster than you.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about you?
That's a good question. So how do you measure, how do you find your best pacing? Is that what you want to get to?
No, you mentioned that the DPS is all about. So
Yeah.
so stroke rate and we always this is two factor, right?
Yeah.
DPS and stroke rate.
Yeah.
What are the?
I got your point. So it's when I said you increase the stroke rate and you lose speed. That's very easy to, that's why technology is there.
Yeah.
Because you see it. Because you see when you analyze this, say I put my Garmin on a boat, and you take it and you put it on a computer, and you see my speed was 17 kilometers an hour. Okay? Then as soon as I picked up my stroke rate, because I want to go to the finish line, remember what Chada said. Some athletes, they try to maintain their speed, and we think they are losing speed at the end, but actually it's positive speed. It's not a negative speed. The moment that you maintain your speed to the end, that doesn't mean that you're losing speed. Probably some other people that are actually losing speed and you're not because you're maintaining the speed. So your speed becomes positive and their speed becomes negative when you do the analysis. But what happens if you increase the stroke rate, the stroke rate will high, but then you can see that if you see the speed of the boat is going down and down and down and decreasing, then that stroke rate is not good. He should probably lower the stroke rate to maintain the speed, at least try to fight to keep the speed.
I got it. Yeah, I got it. So my question is, so we find that speed is the ultimate as we also was the aim of technique, whatever endurance, speed, whatever we give, is for speed, strength. If we are getting a higher speed with a higher stroke rate, then because we are saying ultimately who reaches the fastest is the best.
Yeah.
So even if the DPS is reduced and the stroke rate is increased, which one will we prefer? We will stuck to the DPS or we will go for the higher stroke?
And to be honest with you, for 200 meters, I prefer stroke rate high. It's proof that, for example, Mark DeYoung went up to 180 stroke rate per minute. 180, it's unbelievable. Dr. Alex, he was talking about Mike Kiefer, he was 170 something. So we got some athletes, they hit the mark of 180. Mark DeYoung was 180, and he did it. So 200 meters is the range of stroke rate is very, very, very high. Very high. So we don't have high stroke rate basically. But that has to be also with training. You can maintain high stroke rate with very, very high speed. It's the power of training.
So I wanted to justify it.
Yeah.
Because we need to train for really.
So, and thank you for reading. Don't get lost into stroke rate. When I said TPS will increase when the stroke rate go high. Okay, so TPS will go low. But when the stroke rate, in 200 meters is a different story. Very different story. TPS is more than 500 and 1,000 meters. But when you look at 200 meters, that's a very different. We don't look at the TPS, like Chaba said, maybe technique, I'm not sure if that's very important. We just go fast. All you need to measure is stroke rate and speed. And you have to train to maintain high stroke rate and maintain high speed. If you see the speed is dropping, that probably they need to train more. Because to be honest with you, I haven't seen many athletes going 140 stroke rate in 200 meters and winning. They all go below 160, beyond 160. That is the perspective for you for stroke rate. 160 and plus for successful athletes in 200 meters. It's a high stroke rate, unfortunately. But that's not the case for 500 meters. You know, 500 meters, we're talking about 120, 125, 1,000 meter, 118. You know, it's between 115, 112, 118. That is the range. And that's why you need to remember. And it's good to know that. Any more questions? Yes.
Just want to know about the K1 400 meter cost.
The K1 200? Top speed? 20 plus easier. Oh yeah, 20 plus easier. K4 will be 23, 24. You talk about 23, 23 kilometers an hour. K1 they go 20. At the start, the first 50 meters, you will see 23, 23.86. That is the point for, yeah. And then it stays 20 or 20 and close to 20. That's the 200s. That's not 200 though, way less. If you remember the presentation for 500 and 1,000 meter, it's 17, 16, that's the range. Any more questions? Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Very informative session. So my question is, coach, you have 10 athletes, 10 number of athletes,
Yeah.
one amount of your training session.
Yeah.
So, do you suggest any real-time feedback machine or device that you can coach and monitor my athletes during training? The real-time feedback that this was slow or maybe slow rate and everything, then I can give you command that please increase or maybe.
So you're talking about which machine, which device?
Yes.
It's this watch here. I'm wearing. It's a Garmin watch. Any Garmin watch will give you this.
That is for at least installed in the board. No?
Yeah, they put it on the
For
board.
coaches.
Yeah, that's very expensive, but they have those. So if you have the iPad, then you can connect them. You cannot talk right now. The technology is only one boat you can see. You cannot see multiple boats. From what I know, you can have an iPad, and you have to. The problem is if they go away a certain range, then the data that you get in your iPad is not very accurate. But there is they're working on it, and I think this will be revolutionary to have the coach that has an iPad, and he can actually check all the speed, check all the stroke rate right there, and he can detect all those pacing problems during the training. Okay, but to be honest with you, if this exists, this technology, as a coach, I would never use it because I'm driving the more boat than I'm going to be. You lose your sense as a coach, and I hope coaches will not use this in the future. You can use it after the session. I love to sit down with my athletes and try to go through the graphs and explain, but that's too much to use this on the water boat. to be honest with you. That's too much. Because you have to keep your instinct as a coach to be able to use your eyes, to use your common sense, use your judgment to evaluate your coach. Okay? Please, I said this multiple times, and I hope you get the message. Don't get lost into technology, because technology you will lose your common sense, you will lose your efficiency as a coach, you will lose how to make a good judgment. If you always focus on technology, then it becomes like iPhone. You always check the videos, you always be on your iPhone all the time. It's going to become like that, so be careful, okay? So use technology because you need to upgrade your skills, because now, these numbers, we need to know them. You need to know your numbers, but no, try to be as wise as possible when you use technology. That's my recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. This whole moment she's after me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, so now we have the next guest speaker, Mr. Jean-Michel, to please come up on the podium. A big round of applause for sir, please.
So Zach gave you a perfect example of a young and talented coach who managed the technology. I am an old-fashioned guy. For further presentation, I have support on the PowerPoint, but today what I understood is that the majority of this attendance is sprint or related to sprint coaching. So it's an honor to be participating to the symposium for me. But this sequence now, if I understood well, is about to present you as much as I can in a short time and with no too much detail what is Salon and how as a coach Salon work with assets. It's a very basic presentation I want to do now. And what I would love is that, because you are not specialists, I would love to receive questions about some point that you do not understand very well about slalom, the competition, the rules, not very much in detail, but what surprised you in slalom. I'm here to answer as much as I can. And again, my next presentation later tomorrow and Sunday, if I understood well, will be more dedicated to officiating, course design, very dedicated to slalom. If you wish, you are more than welcome. But today, it's more about part of this story and also to be attractive for us. So first of all, even Zach presented me briefly. I'm French. I was a young athlete, slalom athlete, when I came in Utrecht. They teach me whitewater, and I was an athlete. I reached the French national team. It was in 74, 75. I was a relatively poor high-level athlete. My background in sport was not great. I had a good skill in whitewater, it's important. I developed good skill in whitewater. So I could reach the national team and the international competition, but not really great assets when it comes to medals. And then I decided, maybe wisely, to become a coach. And probably my frustration as an athlete, I'd be fueling my motivation to be a coach. And a detail, I've been the first coach in France who was dedicated to the female athletes. In the past, the female athletes and male athletes were training together with no real attention to the female at this time. And I took on my shoulder, actually it was a great experience to start coaching the first female team in France. It was around 75. After my career as a coach in 2000, I became an organizer. We organize World Championships in France, and I've been involved in the Olympic Games in Athens. Why I mention this is because from coaching with high-level athletes, I've been moving to the organization, and I think that's why I have spent 20 years with the ICF as a technical delegate, mixing a role as an official, judging, chief judge, teaching for the official, preparing the Olympic Games, building artificial course for the Olympic Games, and also, with Shaba, you remember, developing the discipline. Sam is still a discipline which needs to be developed, and that's the reason why I'm here today in India, because we know, that the Indian Canoe Federation Association is willing to give a boost to Slam. So that's my background, and this 20 years in duty at the ICF, I've been touching all the range of what could be development and also what could be delivering. My last games delivered was in Paris, and I could tell you I was very happy and proud to finish my career in Paris, not only because it was my home country, but I think because I'm sure it's because it was one of the most achieved competitions we have delivered ever in the game. So it was a good way to turn the page. So this is for my background. How the slalom, and it's important to remember, how slalom started. It was not a competition at all. In France, and somehow in Germany and Czech Republic, it was in the 45, with an interruption with the Second World War, sorry. And originally, the people who were practicing canoeing whitewater, they were running river. So they were traveling, sometimes by train and car, and they were going for paddling river with boats which were extremely fragile. And because they were fragile, they were very scared to break their boat when they were running rapids on the river. So some people, when they were coming back to their club in the city, where they had no whitewater most of the time, they were willing to train their skill. And one guy invented somehow a way to develop the skill by, on flat water, creating obstacles with wooden poles hanging on the river, and they start playing with this just to exercise how they are accurate in their maneuver, how precise, how close, how fast they could turn the boat. It was big boats. So it was first of all an exercise to develop and make their technique better for when they go to the whitewater to be more precise and successful and break less equipment. And then from this, the people say, oh, since we have this and we exercise often, let's have a competition. And slowly the competition started. First, in the foot of the dam, where you have a rapid, they introduced these gates with different style of trajectory. And it was very funny with penalty, crazy penalty. Sometimes you have a wall of poles, and if you hit the wall, you are disqualified. So maybe it's interesting to see how more and more precise and accurate in the rules and in the way to mark the course they have been moving through. And then the ICF took this as a discipline. We had two whitewater disciplines in the ICF. The downriver, the whitewater downriver, where you start from A to B along a stretch of rapid. At this time it was maybe 45, 1 hour or 35 minutes of competition. And then on the stretch of the river, we were building slalom course on National River most of the time, and it was the slalom. So the two whitewater disciplines. And at this time, people were doing both. As a kid, I've been rowing, doing the national championships in downriver and in slalom, because the skills were complementary. The downriver require more aerobic capacity, but the skill, the shape of the boat was slightly different, but the skills, the most important skill was how I could read the river, how I could read the whitewater feature to play with. And remember, this is the key of the slalom. How I could observe the river and from my observation decide how I will organize my stroke, my positioning of the boat. Remember that? Because this is the key of the success in slalom. I want to give you another brief recall about how the slalom becomes Olympic. I know it has been sometimes very conflictory in the ISF. Slalom becomes Olympics, and every time it becomes an Olympic discipline, not an Olympic event, it was because the local organizing committee was very, very motivated, was pushing for that. So first time was 1972. 1972 Olympic Games in Munich, where the German Canoe Federation, who was the great federation in whitewater, has been pushing, they have been pushing a lot to introduce the discipline in the program. And we had the games in 1972. And the next time we had it, exactly 20 years later, in Barcelona. And for the same reason, the local organizing committee was advocating to have the slalom in the official plan for the Olympic Games. So Barcelona has been the real birth of the Olympic discipline, because since Barcelona 92, we have been part of the Olympic program for every Games. And it's important that to recognize that once slalom became Olympic discipline, it has completely changed the profile of the sport, the support received from the sports authority in every country. As soon as you have an Olympic discipline, you have a reasonable chance of going to the Olympics and achieve results, or participate at least. The Olympic Committee, National Olympic Committee, the sports ministry give you support in human resources, in funding, and that's why slalom from 90, even before that, as soon as it has been announced as an Olympic discipline, slalom has been growing, and I say, by the way, I took the opportunity to use this growing tendency to develop as much as we can in all the countries with more or less success. Okay, so this is I told you already that every time the local organizing committee was instrumental in having the slalom included in the program, the difficulty of this is that every time we have to, mostly we have been building an artificial course, and I have to be frank with you, it's one of the arguments that we have been facing from the IOC, telling us, look, every time you have the Olympics, you build a very or an expensive venue, and what happened with this venue? It's a venue expensive for 4 days of competition. Well, now we have 9 days of competition, but at this time it was 4 days. And what you could do to make this investment affordable first, so reduce the cost, and sustainable after the game. And we have terrible example of Olympic Games venue that have been never used, and we have also very successful venue which are success economically, sustainable, and will allow the development of the partner, the development of training center and competition. So this is one of the problems we face as a study. I think we are working better and better because more and more the local organizing committee, the community, the place where we have the slalom competition, this venue is even built before them, not only for them, like in Paris or in Brisbane in 32, or in Oklahoma in USA for LA 28. So I said as being advocating, working with the organizer in a way that this venue issue is less and less an argument against the discipline. We even anticipate that in Brisbane, Australia, we have already a project on the road, on track, and I said that we're working, and this venue will be even working before many years before the game. So it's why I mentioned the venue, because for development, it's a key element for the slalom to be really built strongly and permanently in a country. India nowadays is facing a clear problem that you have no permanent facility where you could establish a training center. You may imagine even you have several in the country. And even you have such facility, you have to pay attention to have a facility that will allow not only competition, but allow the education and training of young paddler and development. So it's a very well-balanced project you have to build in a way that this facility is not the most difficult course in the world, as often people want to build, but a facility that will be working for both development, training, and competition. So that's very important when it comes to build a permanent facility in the country. And this is where we are now, at this time in India. I hope. Hello. Français. Then, what is slalom? Slalom is, first of all, white water game. It's a white water game. Okay, there is the game, there is the penalty, there is the judges, video. But first of all, remember the origin is how I am strong, how I could manage my boat, how I could make my boat traveling on the river, on the rapid. And my game is to find a challenging trajectory and to achieve. And I could do that with no net. I could use the rocks. Actually it was the way to run safely a river. If you want to run safely a river with big rapid, you must be able to stop any place you wish in a eddy. This one must be like a rock where the water is just for a while stopping a bit, And then you have the wave, the drop, the roll, and whatever. So you play with that. And to play with that, it gives you safety. You paddle safely the river. And again, for the development of the slalom athletes, that's exactly what you have to do at the river. And the difficulty, again, is to find the right place where you learn the first step of the development of an athlete. If you start in a too strong river, too strong flow, drop, big wide waves, okay, you may be a champion of not dying, but you are not developing techniques. So that's important. So whitewater, you teach whitewater. And to teach whitewater, you need to identify a place where the athletes could clearly play with, let's say, the 10 key moves that the river is creating when the water runs from point A to point B. You know why you have whitewater? Two elements, the drop. The water drops from 1 meter to 0. This gives speed. The second element is the flow. Is it the Ganga River or is it the 10 cubics per second small creek? That makes the difference. The power of the water. And why I insist on this is because if you have no place where you demonstrate and let the kids, girls and boys, play with this key fundamental position of the river, you could spend 10 years paddling in slalom, you will never get the key of how I decide the organization of my trajectory, depending on the whitewater feature I have to play with. Remember in sprint, normally, it's a flat water, 8 line. Sometimes there is wind, sometimes there is waves, which is an issue. The assessors has to adapt to this, even the sport wave or whatever. In slalom, in whitewater, down in slalom, the course is marked, is designed to play with this element of the river. So I insist on this because if you have this in mind, this is the best way to give the best approach for the development of young athletes. And why I mention young athletes? Because in whitewater slalom, you could try, maybe some of you have been trying whitewater. If you are 18 years boy, already well shaped, and you do whitewater, you could do that. You have the strength, you are brave enough to do it, but you will have certainly more problems than the young kids of 10, 12, 13 years old with a reasonable body, because whitewater is not about strength, it's about how you combine with the whitewater. How the strength of the river play with your speed, with your positioning of the ball. So a young kid or a young girl with the wave, light, could play with this easier than an adult. And this is one of the problems we have been facing in the past in India, is that we had only young, not young paddler, but paddler already 18 and above, who start coming from the river guide rafting, so they have a good knowledge of whitewater, but it's too late for them to catch all the subtlety of the step-by-step learning process of how I will play with the trajectory that the course design will propose to them. So again, I insist, if you want to have a chance in India, as everywhere in the world, to start and build a strong base for going to the next Olympic game in India, hopefully, you have to start with kids who know how to swim. And 10, 11, 12 years is a reasonable age, and that works. But then you have to bring them at a place where they can manage the challenge of the water you propose. are the key moves. Briefly, the key moves, I remember I told you the drop create the speed of the water. The water, the hydraulics is when the water runs down, if there is an obstacle, the obstacles accelerate the water, but behind the obstacles you have what we call an eddy. Eddy is a key feature to recognize. You have strong eddy, weak eddies. At the end of the eddies, it is less and less strong. So this is a key element you play with. Every upstream gate in slalom are placed mostly in an eddy. So eddies are important. It is the place where you stabilize the boat and stop and make a shoot. The other key feature are the waves. Waves, we have different waves. The green waves, the big, up and down, very nice, with a good surf possibility. And then you have this same wave with hole. When there is a rock, depending on the depth of water above the obstacles of the bottom of the river, it creates more or less hole. So waves and hole are the two other elements we play with. Okay. And in between, you have the different speed of the water. Sometimes where the water is stretched between two obstacles, the water is super accelerating. But as far as it goes down, the speed goes slower and slower. So in course design, in trajectory, when the water is less strong, it's another possibility for trajectory. But mostly, we have the feature with the waves and hole, the two eddies, and the rest is more or less speed of power in the current, but it could be flat, but the speed of the water still is a problem to manage when we want to move through. Okay. So this is for the river. And the people you teach, when I teach slalom, I try to help them to identify exactly the different kind of feature. And you have to go very slowly, step by step with them, but it's better for them to understand, observe, understand, and feel with their equipment this experience in a different whitewater move, because then they build their own. Often I compare this to an alphabet. If I know different letters of the alphabet, I can build a word and a sentence. And the trajectory in kayaking on the slalom course is a big sentence you write. And you do that with elements of alphabet that you have recognized and you create a word. I don't know if it is clear enough, but it's the way I would advise you to teach in this way. There is a low way. Every time they go for a trajectory, you tell them what they have to do. But it doesn't work really, because when they are in competition on their own, there is nobody to tell them what they have to do. It's another element I will highlight later. So why speed? The key moves, we mentioned them. And then the level of difficulty I did already mention is what is the quantity of flow, what is the drop, how wide is the river, how complex are the different features. As a coach, I must choose a place which is simple, especially at the beginning. Simple to identify, simple to play with. When you become an expert, you play with more complexity. Again, it's step by step to help the people to be able to read and understand what is the river they are before. Plus again. No question? So I mentioned the gates now. My kids, my group of athletes is good enough in wild water, they play super, they enjoy. Important, they enjoy. That's why it's important. You could start very young. You could play years and years with the water. You get never bored. If you are not scared, you never get bored. It's non-ending learning process. Non-ending. If you become more stronger, you play play with stronger and stronger opponents. So that's why it's fun. Okay? Then when they know this, they know the basic. I will make their trajectory sharper. You have played, you play with the rocks, with the wave. Now let's put one pole and another pole, and you go from this pole to the next, upstream, upstream. In the middle there is a wave to ferry. I teach them how to ferry and some different ways. But they have a pole that gives them a target. So that's the beginning of standard course design. And as a coach, you propose the course design at the level of their skill. You don't put difficult game, narrow game. They get in very difficult feature because they will not succeed, they will not learn, and they will get worried and abandon. So again, I propose something that gives them more challenge in terms of accuracy of that, what they have to give, deliver with their own, but it's still acceptable for their level of development. Okay? So that's your role as a coach, is to know what level of difficulty I put with my gates onto the white water. And a detail which is important and advocate again for permanent facility well done is that the key element for you as a coach and to make a reasonable progression for the asset is your gate needs to be easy to move and you must move them as often as possible. If I propose 2 or 3 gates and I could change them 30 centimeters right, 30 centimeters left from one attempt to another, it's a way to give them an understanding how the positioning of the gate changes the nature of the territory and they play with parameter. So again, it's not repeating and repeating the same situation, it's just proposing different situations and vary the parameter for them to understand the relation between this variation and the action I am doing with my paddle and my body and my move. That's important to make the link between the characteristic of the trajectory you propose with the gates and what they propose to answer with that topic. I hope it's not too complex. Professor? You are a fan. Ça va?
For me, it's not control the time of the lady. She's very strict about keeping.
I'm true. I could finish it. 20 minutes. And the rest of the life. Yes. Okay. Well, I think I'm good. So we have mentioned now the trajectory with the gates. Let's move. And again, even with these young 13, 12, 14, 15 years kids, there is two aspects in the training. How you train their technique, so how they develop techniques, so which stroke they use, how they place it, the power of your stroke, the high range is not necessary, you need control in the water. You develop techniques. That's one thing. The second thing is how they could answer, they could produce what they have to produce at the time you are there. So when you train them in slalom, you have clearly the training workout, the session, the workout where you explore the new technique, new skills, new feature. So it's an open workout, and then you need regularly to ask them, because this is exactly the fundamental of slalom competition, when they have to deliver the trajectory of the course with no penalty. So it's important to leave a space, a time where they play with the different situation to try and to learn something new. But you have to do regularly with them the situation, like we call it, competition competition situation. Even it's not a national competition, it's a training, and you say, now we have 10 gates, this is the course, you may use part of the courses you have already proposed before. You put them 10, 12 gates, not too much, and they have to deliver. They have to go through the course as for the competition, they observe from the bank, they go in the course, through the course, and this is a competition with as less penalty as possible and even better, no penalty. Because this is the principle and fundamental of Salon. I produce my trajectory through the gate with no penalty. If you do not play this, so I play with a session open and I play with a session I have to deliver, you never exercise them to deliver completely in competition. And that's the drama. Because this is what you prepare for. In spring, you could train hours, you could do a lot of things, but at the end, your capacity in competition to be in a 8-lane start field and to produce and deliver, this is what you train for. And I think Salon, due to the complexity of the task, if you never oblige somehow the athletes to produce what they have to produce for competition, they will be frustrated and they will never be developing the capacity in competition. And if you wait for the 2 or 3 competitions per year they have at the national level, it's not enough. It's one we have in China, for instance, there are very little competition. They have 3, 4 competitions a year in national territory, 4 competitions. In France, a normal athlete, even regional division, is doing 10, 12, 15, 20 competitions a year. So every time you are in competition, like in Spain, you are in the situation to put together the element you need to be either winning or second or third, but at the end, that's the time you take the opportunity to know what have you done in terms of progression. I am able to deliver what I'm preparing for or not. If you are not able to deliver at any time, it's better to go for white water, but just for fun. But don't oblige you to come to competition. Okay? And this exercise is even more important because we have been talking about training techniques, but imagine all the mental training you need to do in Salon to be able to, from the bank, even I'm 16, from the bank I look and I know exactly what position I will give to my I must visualize and learn how to visualize my trajectory, me planning in the gates, what position, what stroke, where. So it's a mental exercise, very demanding, and I have to start doing this bit by bit, some stretch, but one day I do 20 gates. And this exercise needs training. So the mental technique, the mental rehearsal, the mental training is fundamental. You could not do it every time, but you have to do it time to time just to develop this skill. Penalty. That's a big problem with penalty in Salon. I don't know why there is penalty in Salon. Because you could have a wonderful run and you miss one net, 50, it's like a disqualification. And the 50 penalty, it's not because the judge gives you a penalty. If you have a penalty, it's because somehow in your trajectory there is a defect. There is something wrong. You are not fast enough, not angled enough, not, I don't know, whatever. But the penalty is the translation of something missing in the plan you have made for negotiating the trajectory. Does it make sense? And that's why the penalty, it's not a punishment, it's a consequence. So the assets, when he's planning his organization for paddling the run, he must make an assessment of what is the level of risk I will take in my trajectory to avoid the penalty. If I am not the skill enough to do it short approach, I take maybe 1 meter or more, but I negotiate my time to clear. And I think that's also a very important principle in sport. I need to adapt the level of my risk in the engagement of my trajectory, of my paddling, according to my level of skill or my level of control when I'm paddling the water. Probably something comparable with swim. I start like, I go, because I will give it to the end. And you never go to the end, but you need to have it. At some point, these athletes need to just readjust the level of expectation for him. What is the stroke rate I am able to maintain? Sometimes it's a bit more complex because of the nature of the field, but that's the same. I put my threshold in terms of risk. So that's the key element to develop and teach with the athletes. So it's a pleasure.
Because for me, when I'm watching the slalom events, for me it seems that 50 points of penalty is very cruel. And now I understand a little bit better why athletes who is missing again get the 50 penalty points. It means out of the competition. Basically, it means it's disqualified out of the competition, no any more chance. So don't think about to change these rules. That's my first question. The second, the athletes when they start, then it's not useful for them to paddle first on the flat water and not immediately go to the river to know the basic movement. And the third, if you can explain about the race course and the scoring
I think, thank you, Sharon, to just remind me, I've been insisting a lot, focusing a lot on whitewater training, because this is a fundamental issue. And to answer Sharon's question, the flat water gates, or flat water training, and flat water gates on training session, it's important because you also develop skills in terms of coordination, where you place the paddle compared to the gate line, to the post. So it's important, and often you need to have a rest. You could not train in white water twice a day, because when you are exhausted, your level of stamina and how accurate you are in the trajectory is going lower. So if you paddle in white water, you need to paddle fresh, both mentally and physically. So it's not reasonable to train every day in white water, and if you go twice in white water a day, the second training will be very different than the first, less demanding. It will be maybe only running the white water just to keep the weight, to develop the stroke, to develop the sense of how I avoid the big hole. It's white water training, it's not gate and trajectory accurate. Penalty, we have been thinking a lot about the penalty. The 50, actually the 50 and the evolution of the paddling and the athletes is now showing that if we remove the 50, it becomes, you could not make the results, because if the 50 now is all you miss the game completely, but most of the 50 are because they negotiate so tight the game that the head, the rules say, when you negotiate the game, you must have your head completely inside the two poles. When I say inside the two poles, the gate line is from the outside of the pole to the other pole outside. So even the diameter of the pole is including the gate line. So if I'm sneaking and making the gate at the last moment, because I'm too tight deliberately, if I have one part of that which is not in the gate line, it's a 50. And if we remove this, it will be extremely difficult to judge what trajectory is okay or not. We have even been thinking to make it larger, to have the observation because for the gate observation ahead is not easy. That's why we use video review a lot, especially for the 50. But we could not get rid of the penalty. And the penalty, 2-second penalty, so if you touch the gate with whatever part, body, board, whatever, it's a 2-second penalty added to your running time. This one we were looking at removing to 1 second, but actually 1 second, there is plenty of situations where it's better to hit the gate than to go clean. And then it becomes not readable for the spectators. I agree, 50 is very difficult to judge. That's why we are now exploring when there is a 50 to judge it and signal it automatically for the people to know. On TV, we have already the possibility to show it immediately because we use a terminal like cell phone. So immediately when the penalty is given and it's a break, it's on the graphic on TV. So somehow we inform the public and everybody. So that's what I could say for your remark, Shala. So let's say that. Do you have a question? I'm sure you have a question. Now, do you have a question first, and then I give a quick explanation of the rules and the convention. Question? Not all together, please. Salam or not salam? The people for salam, we will spend the rest of the week together. So, in the meantime, do you have a question?